over 10 million Ethiopians need urgent food assistance because of drought, and children are the worst affected.
The 2016 budget for Nigeria is finally approved. What's in it and what does it mean for the nation? We'll have the details.
And the World Bank is partnering with Nigeria to improve girl-child education with a big grant that emphasizes support for rural areas. Africa 54 starts right now. Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory of the Voice of America, coming to you from our global headquarters in Washington. Lots of great stories for you today on our show.
Well, thanks for staying tuned to Africa 54. I'm Cynthia Are. Nigeria's budget for 2016 has finally been approved after some long negotiations between the president and the legislature. Joining me in studio to discuss the signing of the Nigerian budget into law is Human Resources Development Practitioner, Mr. Yomi Fawemi. Thank you so much, Mr. Yomi, for being a part of Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
Now, based on what you saw with the signing of the budget, was it really worth the wait?
I think so. I mean, I think the time spent to get it right, it's better. It's better for you to have a good plan than to have a bad plan. I mean, particularly because if the plan is not well done, it's going to be difficult for the executive to make it happen. So I think the wait was worth it. While it was unnecessary too long, particularly in a government that has the balance of power both in the executive and legislature, it was a total unexpected thing to see. My hope is that next year it's much faster than this.
Now, what are the risks that we might see from this delay?
And I think that's where Nigerians should focus on. I think we should be done with all the discussions before. Now, okay, so we have a plan, fairly good plan based on the way you look at it. The question you need to ask yourself, what are those risks that we need to have? The first risk we need to think about is all the dimensions and the assumptions about the budget, one of which is the fact that we're going to produce over 2 billion barrels per day of oil, part of which is the price of oil that's going to go there. All of that become a huge risk because we may not do as much as that, or we could do much more than that. And if you check the figures in the last recent days, we're having oil production seems to have gone down compared to what we had before now. So that's a huge risk. Another major risk is the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar. Assume that 197 for the sake of the budget. You may not be able to get that. Also, another risk we need to think about is that this budget is going to be borrowing a lot of money. So the assumption that you're going to get people to lend you money, that's a huge risk. That's from the side of financing the budget. From the side of executing the project, you know, that's our greatest challenge. In Nigeria, over the last 4 years, we always do a good job finishing all the money we have for recurrent expenditure, but we don't do anything close to 90% for capital expenditure consistently. That's a huge risk for three reasons. One, the president and the executives are going to rely on the same civil servants. Now, all the noise and all the fight over this, now is the time for the civil service to take on from here. Is our civil service having the capacity to spend that amount of money within a short period of time? We got so much excited to say, oh yeah, we have so much money to spend this year because of the amount of money we're spending. But do we have a civil service that can spend it within this period of the year? The second risk is the timing. This is May.
Yes.
Interestingly, the president, while signing the budget, actually said we'll get the details of the budget in May 29. Now, that means that we're not even in a hurry to implement because we're going to be getting details. Now, so the question is that perhaps we're not even talking about a May June implementation, we're talking about a June implementation. What is the implication? I think like 200 million or so, 200 billion is allocated for, 200 billion is allocated for the road sector. What happens in June? You are in the middle of the rainy season. So that's not the time to do road construction. We may have to have serious road construction happening when you have the August break. Now, you know, because of the El Nino effect and global change, we don't have August break. So we may be looking at November for active construction. So the window we had to do quick work on roads, we have lost it. I think one of the things we need to do as a country, both the leadership and the people, is remember the fact that this is our budget. Yeah. So from both sides, we need to ensure effective monitoring. And one of the things the president has mentioned is that there's going to be a system to monitor and evaluate. I think all of us should get involved and see how this money is being spent. So it's like you have money in a bucket, and as the money is going out, you know where it's going to, and you're sure that you go to make sure this money is spent at the right time. We all need to ensure this money is spent. We also need to think about developing the capacity of our civil service as a critical resource. One very dangerous assumption we have in Nigeria is that we can ignore the civil service. At the point of execution, that's when the human capability, the execution capability, the strategic capability between the civil service and the executive comes in. If there is no tying, if the vision set by the president, for example, is not accepted. So, for example, I give you an instance. Part of what it's going to, we said that we're going to train some new teachers to come on board. The question is, who is going to do the training? So you're either going to rely on the College of Education or the university or a new agency or the Nigerian Teachers Institute. Are they ready?
Mr. Yamifawa, Human Resources Development Practitioner, thank you so much for joining us in Africa 54. We look forward to having you again.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here. Thank you.
Well, in East Africa, Ethiopia is dealing with its worst drought in decades, and children are the most vulnerable to the food shortages, leaving them sick and unable to go to school. Martha Van der Wolf reports for VOA from the Matahara district, where most citizens are depending on humanitarian aid.
Over 10 million Ethiopians need urgent food assistance because of the ongoing drought. Children are the worst affected as they are the most vulnerable. This mother was admitted to the clinic with her 3-year-old malnourished child.
My baby got sick because there's no food.
These young boys stopped going to school to help out their families after all the cattle died due to the drought. The Ethiopian government is working together with humanitarian organizations by providing food, especially for the 6 million children at risk of hunger, disease and lack of water.
Due to malnutrition or due to hunger, the children suspected to malnutrition that causes slow brain development and finally to damage their thinking abilities, and they may aggravate, for example, diarrhea.
Over $800 million in emergency funding has been provided, but Ethiopia's government and the United Nations say a total of $1.4 billion is needed for this year. The bulk of those funds is to provide food. Receiving aid is the only way this mother can feed her 6 children.
Because of the drought, we have nothing except the government's support. We have nothing at home. We have nothing to feed our children. We don't have drinking water.
Food aid will be needed into 2017 here in Ethiopia and in other parts of Eastern and Southern Africa, also experiencing drought, believed to be caused by the periodic weather phenomenon El Niño. Martha Van der Wolf for VOA News in the Matahara district of Ethiopia.
Now, food production defines the activities of people all over the world, and for indigents of Gakim, that's a community in Cross River State, South Nigeria, groundnut cultivation is in their heritage. Their peculiar method of nut shelling and their desire for more support from the government is our focus in this next report.
It's a journey of about 6 hours from Calabar to Gakim, in Bekwara local government area, a community located in the northern senatorial district of Cross River State. This small community, predominantly farmers, shares boundaries with Benue State, where they get the majority of their produce. Inasmuch as they lack modern structures and amenities, that does not stop them from forging ahead. In Gakim, groundnut business is their specialty, but one unique thing about it is the way they separate the shell from the nut. Both young and old are in the business, a business they have been into for over 40 years.
We do buy the groundnut from Benue State, and then sometimes we plant it ourselves here, harvest it, and then we dry it. After drying it, we break it. As you can see, our women and mom doing it, so that is how we do it. We don't have engine that is used in breaking the groundnut. We use our hands to do the breaking. After breaking, we use a basin to blow it. You have to separate the shell from the seed.
A first-time visitor will be amazed at how perfectly they crack the shell without breaking the seed. They can crack as many bags as possible. Buyers come from Rivers, Akwa Ibom, the state capital Calabar, and even Benue to purchase the already shelled groundnuts. And because market day is every 5 days, they must work round the clock to ensure their customers have something to take back. Tiring it may be. This may be why you're seeking help from government to make their work easy.
We too they suffer. We want to make government help us. Because the sufferness, when we suffer here, we go carry granite, put for table, begin break and one after the other before we go finish them. If government they help us bring that machine for us, we go they break for machine, carry and go sell, break for machine, carry and go sell.
We don't have much finance to bring as much as we're supposed to buy. So we need loan so that the government will assist it in loan. And that engine, so that when we go to the market, we buy up to 10 or 20 bags and break and use engine to break it.
Like I want make the government give me the machine because the hand depend me.
They also want a bank established in their community in order to save their money and also make it easier for their customers.
We don't have bank here. The money we used to sell market here, before we transact it to go and deposit in bank somewhere is a very great distance to us. So one government to bring bank for us so that we establish a bank here so that it will enable our customer to come and buy more market here and go back without having problem.
The state government has promised to assist them boost production in the shortest possible time.
Early this year, we have sent someone there so that all these women will group themselves into cooperatives. Groundnut is a very simple thing and the shelling machines are not costly. If they aggregate themselves into cooperatives, like they have done for rice and for oil palm, we can easily deal with them. And then inform us that they are ready. We will give them the support.
Residents of Gakim community are waiting anxiously to see that they are relieved and they have a shelling machine that will make them produce more groundnuts speedily.
Now, we have a new segment today on Africa 54. Veteran viewer journalist Peter Cloty goes on one-on-one with newsmakers on vital topics. South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar are central figures in the recent civil war that left tens of thousands dead and many more displaced. John Prendergast, a human rights activist and best-selling author, is today's guest for a one-on-one with Peter Cloty.
Now, you were in South Sudan recently last year. If I may ask you, what were your takeaways?
What's first, it's just devastating to see how much folks that thought within their own independent country that they would have a chance at a brighter future, and how that's just been crushed by the leadership of the government and the rebellion. And secondly, to see the deepening of the humanitarian and human rights crisis, the acceleration of that crisis as the war has trotted along. Those are really, I mean, it's devastating to see for the civilian population.
Now, one of the objectives of ENOUGH project is to prevent genocide and human rights violations, among other things. On the ground in South Sudan, what are the challenges? What are the core reasons why the conflict keeps erupting despite numerous amount of peace deals that they've signed?
The core driver of violence, the core reason why these conflicts are not getting resolved is that there is really a hijacking of the state, South Sudan, Sudan, Congo, CAR, and other states, in which a group of people establish a kleptocratic network, and they basically organize the state in order to maximize the privatization of wealth. In other words, to steal the country blind, to take everything they can and to use some of those resources to build up security systems, to use the army to repress dissent. We'd like to see real, biting, significant consequences for leaders who are willing to steal their country blind, who are willing to use violence to stay in power, and who are willing to subvert democratic institutions in order to extend their rule. So when we start to see the kind of attention paid to those human rights violations in the same way that we've seen it with respect to countries like Syria and Iran and North Korea, when we start to use the same foreign policy tools that would actually make a difference in supporting peace and human rights in Africa, I think that's the future that I dream of.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a big grant from the World Bank, money directed toward improving girl-child education in Nigeria. Stay with us for that and much more.